Welcome to the Sharp Mind Show, episode 28. I'm Nate, the FitfutureMD, your host. Make sure you shop at instrasale.com and pick you up a cool, inspirational t-shirt today. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. All right, so story number one of the day. Trump says he's going to use the money raised from tariffs to bail out farmers. Trump says he's going to use the money raised from tariffs to bail out farmers. So basically, I think Trump recognizes that a lot of his constituents were farmers, right? And that the policies that he's been putting into place, especially with tariffs and especially the speed of the tariffs, have hurt farmers dearly, right? So, farmers already have, especially, individual farms, already have it tough in the market anyway, right? You got cost pressures, weak prices, risk from the climate where your stuff doesn't grow or gets damaged, market uncertainties, and, when you're a single farm, like you don't get the scale and financing of big corporations, right? So, now say I remember back in, Fran and Floyd, the tobacco crops would get, knocked over in the field. And basically, we would go out there and pick all the tobacco out by hand. You had no choice because the machine couldn't pick it up. And, so I did that for a couple times in my life. But, you're basically out there just trying to save the crop what you could. But like I say, things are supply and demand, right? Government has subsidies to not plant in certain fields, stuff like that. Of course, the big corporations use those. The big corporate farms use those, a lot more than the other ones. But, basically, farming is supply and demand, right? And you would think that there would always be supply constraint when it comes to food, right? But farming has gotten so good that you're overproducing every year on less and less farmland, right? So that makes weak prices, right? So if you have an oversupply, then you have low prices. Well, if you're one of the ones that don't have as much land, obviously weak prices makes it tougher, right? So keep that in mind. But tell me what you guys think about if Trump uses some of the tariff money to help out the farmers. I personally think it would be a great thing if they did that, because I believe his policies are hurting farmers. So, let me know what you guys think about it in the comments below. This episode is brought to you by London and the Goo Goo, which is my wife's children's book. If you have nieces, nephews, or children of your own, make sure you check out London and the Goo Goo, available on Amazon. Also in the link in the description. All right, so it's the weekend. Guess what we do on the weekend? We make our money on the weekend, right? So, of course, I got to talk about value stocks. All right, so today we're going to talk about Verizon. Now, as you know, I made big money on AT&T, right? AT&T I got back when it was under $14, right? Now AT&T's sitting at $28, right? We got Verizon here. Verizon's got a PE of 10, right? And a price of $43.61. Obviously, this is not a penny stock. This is not a mid-level stock. This is the big boy, a big company in Verizon, right? So is Verizon down in that value investment stock group now? And I 100% think it is. But you got to figure out, you have to figure out why Verizon is down, right? So Verizon's down because it lost subscribers. In their earnings calls, they warned that there would be softer growth. And it faces heavy competition, right? So, basically AT&T, T-Mobile, and other ones have, really stepped up their the advertising game, marketing game, whatever you want to call it. And Verizon basically said, okay, well, we're not going to do these costly promotions like the other ones are, and they ended up losing customers to those promotions, right? Because if you got the three big companies, right, AT&T, T-Mobile, and Verizon, basically they offer the same thing, right? It's not like one is like this great thing over the other. I will say that it is known that Verizon's customer service is slightly better, right? But they're basically the same thing, right? So neither one of them really, like Verizon had a competitive advantage before in that it had the best network. Now T-Mobile has bought up some things, and now they are considered the best network, right? So keep that in mind. So we got rising capital costs. So when they started cutting the government, guess those government officials and stuff were using Verizon accounts. Well, those are all getting cut. And, customers are like, okay, well, I'm just not even going to upgrade to the new phone because the new phone is the same as the one I got, right? So, so that's Verizon, right? So you basically got to look at it like this: as the principle of the business changed. Not really. Are their margins bad? No, their margins are still sitting at 20%. They basically just got outmarketed by the other two companies, really, is what I'm seeing. I'm not seeing anything like, 6G is coming and they don't have 6G, or, everybody's going to switch to Starlink or something like that. Like, I'm not seeing that from this company. I'm not seeing something, I'm not seeing it, right? I'm not seeing anything that's like, okay, this company's going to zero, right? That type thing. So to me, this is definitely a value investment. Obviously not financial advice, because I don't do individual financial advice, but I am definitely going to be trying to add this to my portfolio. And honestly, in my area, we were definitely thinking about switching to Verizon. And Verizon still has the promotion that I can upgrade from my iPhone 12 to the new iPhone with the full $1,000, and AT&T's only offering me $350. So might be time to switch. I don't know. We'll see. Probably not. Probably just stick with the 12 because nothing's really changed other than a camera. But like I say, Verizon's definitely on the radar right now. We might be stacking some Verizon here in the long-term investing strategy. Tell me what you guys think about Verizon in the comments below. Is it now a value investment stock? All right, so we're going to move on. All right, we got in life coaching today, we got Jasmine and Jared. They're 36 years old, and they keep telling themselves they'll have children when they're ready. When they're ready financially, when they're ready emotionally, and when they're ready career-wise, right? Okay. and the years just keep on passing, right? So number one, I'd have to look in to see like, well, how high is your career, right? So you'll see this sometimes and people are making like, less than the average salary and they're like, oh, I want to work on my career. I'm like, you don't have a career. You're making less than the average salary. Like, what are you talking about? Number one, it's like some people are just out of touch with reality, right? Like, now, yeah, if you're making 300, 400, 500 grand a year and you're saying, oh, I want to concentrate on my career, that might be a good option. You know what I'm saying? Like, but at the same time, there are steps you can take if you're up there in that category, right? Neither Jasmine or Jared are up there in that category. They are making the average salary, right? So for them to say, oh, that we're waiting on our career, like, no. But you are waiting, you would say, oh, I'm waiting financially. We don't have the money to have children, right? And the simple reality is that in America, when you're sitting and you're above the poverty threshold, you're basically eating the brunt of, having children, right? So my daughter, for her to be born, cost me $8,500. And then after she was born, obviously we have a HSA plan. After she was born, she was put on my insurance, not my wife's insurance. And there was another, $4,000 deductible on top of that. So all in all, it cost us about $10,000 just to have the baby, just to have my daughter, right? And that's the reality when you actually make right at the average salary or higher, right? So to say like, okay, we're not going to get there financially, that's understandable. However, we are grown-ups, we're grown adults, right? We know that our goal is to be a family and have children of our own and raise a family. So grown adults, we save for this kind of stuff, right? We invest or save for this kind of stuff, right? So, you start putting money away, they're 36, they don't really have that much time to put money away, but, in a year's time, you can absolutely have the money away to start having a family, right? Now, the other things you have to consider is the baby going to stay home? So you're going to lose the salary, or you're going to send the baby to daycare, and that's that's a preference to each person, right? So some people, like I say, if you really are a career-oriented person and you send your child to daycare, there's nothing wrong with that, but you are going to have your child raised by somebody else most of the time, right? They're going to go from, 7, 8 o'clock in the morning to 5, 6 o'clock at night in daycare, right? And that's more time than you're going to be spending with them, and you have to accept that reality if you're going to keep that going, right? The other thing is, financially, if you're already stretched thin with 2 salaries, imagine taking that salary away, and being stretched there, right? So keep that in mind. But children are worth every penny, right? If you had to work, honestly, if I had to work 2 or 3 jobs to make sure I had children, it would be worth every penny, right? There's nothing better. There's no better feeling in the world. There's no better joy in the world. There's nothing that can compare to having a child, right? Nothing. And there's nothing worth doing more, in my opinion. And, I know the world is not pushing that way. They're just saying, okay, it costs too much. It takes too much of your emotions. You're going to get fat. You're going to get, whatever all the world is saying. But let me tell you, nothing compares. And every parent, pretty much every parent will always tell you that, right? Nothing compares to having a child. I would say over 90% would say that, right? There's that 1% that are like evil people and say that they should have never had children, that kind of thing. But So Jasmine and Jared at 36, we're going to start saving to have the child. Jasmine's 36 years old, so we may be saving to, if you're really going to wait, we may be saving to save your eggs, right? So we may be looking into a way to harvest some eggs so that, if you really want to have children in your 40s, obviously you can do that. And obviously there's options of people carrying your child for you, but you still have to harvest your eggs, right? So at 36 years old, you're already considered the geriatric pregnancy or the old pregnancy, which basically just means that your placenta may not be as strong as when you were younger, right? So that, and then the last thing is we're going to concentrate on health. So you need to get as healthy as possible before you get pregnant, right? So that means loading up on vitamins, loading up on working out, making sure you're eating healthy and right and correctly, get into the best shape of your entire life before having this child. And it makes the bounce back easier. It makes the actual pregnancy easier, and it makes your outcomes better, right? So that's what I would do for Jasmine and Jared. Let me know in the comments below what else you would add to help Jasmine and Jared. And we'll go on to the last thing, which is the quote of the day, which goes right along with the last thing. And it says, the greatest risk is never taking one, right? And I think this really boils home because, I am somebody that works for somebody else, but I am also someone that started his own business, right? Sell t-shirts just like this, and at incertainties.com, and started a podcast, do marketing every day to try to take that risk to have something a little better, right? To make, so I want Incercell to be something bigger than I am, right? For people to see inspirational t-shirts and actually be inspired and make their lives better, right? And I do that as a life coach to try to make people's lives better. But that greatest risk is never taking one. So never even going after what you want, right? So if you want to have a business and you never take that chance, you're always going to be thinking in your head like, oh, I could have done this. And a lot of people use it as their excuse, like, oh, I could have made the league if I had X, Y, and Z. Well, there's very few people that say, okay, I just wasn't good enough. Well, you don't really know if you're good enough unless you take the chance, right? So that's what I did by starting Incercell.com, by starting this podcast, the Sharp Mind Show. And, we're starting to see a little bit better results in our analytics, which is great, so very proud of that. Been working very hard at that. But I do all this to help people, right? Just like Jasmine and Jared in the last thing, I'm here to help people. I'm not here to, so basically, the government makes decisions. How are those decisions going to affect you, right? We talk about investing. We talk about investing because investing is the only way to escape the rat race, right? Truly, it's the only way. So right now, we're what's called outside investors because we don't have enough money to be considered inside investors. Like inside investors get access to the deals before they even hit the market, right? So keep that in mind. That's because they have a crap ton of money to invest, right? So if you ever want to be one of those, you have to start doing things different, right? You have to make those habits of being an investor, right? So even if you're just starting with investing in a coin of silver, it's better than nothing, right? So I believe in that habit of investing. And when you invest, you take a risk because you put money down on that investment, and will it go up or will it go down, right? It's a risk. You take a risk, when you choose to take out debt on cars, take out debt on houses, to take out debt you know, on personal lines of credit, to go to a school and take out student loans. Huge risk there because you can't go bankrupt on those, right? Like, so the point of the story is, in life, you have to take a risk. You have to say, I'm going to be this normal person, or I'm going to take a risk and aim for something bigger. I'm going to aim for something bigger. I hope you will too. Is there any way I can help you? I'm a life coach. So hit me up for life coaching if you're trying to take that bigger step. Make sure you shop at InstaSell.com, pick you up a cool inspirational t-shirt, and pick up my wife's book, London and the Googly Goo, if you're interested. Like this video, comment down below what you think, and subscribe to the channel if you hadn't already, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace.